Part 1. The Ghost in the Void. Imagine, for a moment, that you are standing on the surface of Pluto. It is high noon, but the sky is not blue. It is a pitch-black canopy of eternal night, pierced only by the cold, distant stare of stars that do not twinkle. The Sunday, the giver of all life on Earth, is nothing more than an overwhelmingly bright star in the distance, offering no warmth, no comfort, and barely enough light to read a book. For decades we believed that this frozen, lonely rock marked the edge of our territory. We drew maps of the solar system that ended here, confident that beyond Pluto there was only empty space and drifting dust. We were wrong. In November of 2003, a team of astronomers pointed the Samuel Oskin telescope at a patch of darkness in the constellation Cetus. They were looking for the faint glimmer of moving objects, the debris left over from the formation of the planets. What they found was not debris. It was a world. They named it Sedna, after the Inuit goddess of the sea who dwells in the freezing depths of the Arctic Ocean. It was a fitting name. Sedna is a red icy dwarf planet, almost as large as Pluto, but it resides in a place so remote that it defies logical explanation. To understand why Sedna frightened the scientific community, you have to look at its path. In our solar system, gravity is the lawgiver. The planets orbit the Sunday, and their gravity shapes the orbits of smaller rocks. Neptune, the heavy giant of the outer rim, usually controls everything in its vicinity, but Sedna never comes close to Neptune. Even at its closest approach to the Sunday, Sedna is 2 times further away than Neptune. It is entirely detached from the gravitational influence of the known planets. It floats in a region of space that should be empty. It is a lonely ghost, travelling on an elliptical loop that takes 11,400 years to complete just one orbit. This creates a terrifying problem for astrophysicists. Objects do not just appear in stable, detached orbits by magic. Physics demands a cause. For Sedna to be where it is, something massive had to put it there. Something had to drag it out of the inner solar system and trap it in this desolate wasteland, yet prevent it from being ejected into interstellar space entirely. For years, astronomers tried to explain it away. They blamed a passing star that might have brushed past our sun billions of years ago. They blamed the chaos of the early universe. They desperately wanted Sedna to be a fluke, a singular cosmic accident, but the radiation readings and the orbital data were just the beginning. What they found next would defy physics entirely. 10 years passed, technology improved, we peered deeper into the abyss, and we found that Sedna was not alone. In 2012, another object was discovered with a similarly impossible orbit. Then another, and another. We began to find a collection of these extreme Trans-Neptunian Objects, or TNOs. These are icy worlds, hundreds of kilometers wide, drifting in the absolute zero temperatures of the dark. But as astronomers plotted their paths on a digital map, a chilling pattern emerged. In a chaotic, random universe, these objects should be pointing in all different directions. Their orbits should be scattered like dust in the wind. But they are not. These objects, separated by billions of miles of empty void, are all clustering together. They are all swinging out to one side of the solar system, their elliptical orbits aligned physically in space. Imagine taking a handful of distinct, heavy spinning tops and throwing them onto a table, only to watch them all magically land on their sides, pointing exactly north, spinning at the same angle. The statistical probability of this happening by chance is 0.007%. That is 1 in 14,000. In science, those odds are not a coincidence. They are evidence. This alignment is not natural. These distinct worlds, which have never touched each other, are being shepherded. They are being conducted like an orchestra. The realization sent a shiver through the astronomical community. We are not looking at random rocks. We are looking at a trail of breadcrumbs. We are seeing the gravitational wake of something invisible and immense. When you see a flock of sheep suddenly swerve to the left, you do not need to see the wolf to know it is there. You see the fear, You see the reaction. Sedna and its companions are the sheep, and they are reacting to a monster in the dark. The data suggests that this invisible presence is not a small asteroid or a stray comet. To control the orbits of objects as heavy as Sedna, to keep them in line over 4 billion years, the shepherd needs massive amounts of mass. Computer simulations began running day and night at the California Institute of Technology. They threw every variable into the machine, trying to break the pattern. They tried to simulate the cluster with just Neptune's gravity. It failed. They tried adding the galactic tide of the Milky Way. It failed. The only model that perfectly reproduced the reality we see in the telescope was a model that included a hidden giant. The simulations screamed a specific number, 10 Earth masses. We are talking about an object significantly larger than Earth, likely similar in size to Neptune itself. An entire world, massive enough to hold moons, massive enough to have an atmosphere, hiding in the deep field. But this raised an even more disturbing question. If something that large is orbiting our Sunday, why haven't we seen it? We have scanned the sky in infrared. We have mapped the entire celestial sphere. How does a giant hide in plain sight? The answer lies in the terrifying scale of the Oort Cloud. We tend to think of the solar system as a flat dinner plate, but it is actually surrounded by a sphere of ice and debris that extends nearly halfway to the next star. The volume of space we are searching is incomprehensibly vast, and out there, sunlight is so weak that an object even one the size of Neptune would reflect almost nothing. It would be a frozen shadow moving against a black background. However, there is another possibility. A possibility that is far darker than a frozen planet. As researchers looked at the gravitational distortion, some began to wonder if we were looking for the wrong thing. A planet reflects light. Yes, but if the object is this heavy and this invisible, we have to consider the alternative. What if the reason we cannot see it is not because it is dark, but because it actively consumes light? We have always assumed that the monsters of the universe black holes were thousands of light years away, safely locked in the centers of distant galaxies. We sleep soundly at night believing that our local neighborhood is safe, stable, and devoid of the universe's most destructive phenomena. But the math describing the Sedna anomaly does not require a planet. It simply requires mass. Gravity does not care if the mass comes from rocks and ice, or from a singularity. The clustering of the outer worlds might not be pointing to a planet at all. It might be orbiting a primordial black hole, captured by our Sunday eons ago, silently orbiting in the backyard of our solar system, waiting for us to notice. This theory changes everything we know about our cosmic history, because it implies that the monster under our bed is real. The mathematics of gravity are wonderfully, terrifyingly indifferent. A gravitational field depends only on mass and distance. It does not matter if that mass is made of rock, ice, gas, or the crushed remnants of a collapsed star. To a dwarf planet like Sedna, floating in the distance, a super-Earth and a primordial black hole feel exactly the same. They are both just heavy anchors in the fabric of space-time, pulling the strings of the outer solar system. But to us, the difference is momentous. If this object is a planet, it is a lost sibling. Astronomers call it Planet 9. The leading hypothesis, championed by researchers at Caltech, suggests that early in the life of our solar system, we had a fifth giant planet. Alongside Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, there was another, but the gravitational chaotic dance of the early days was violent. Jupiter, the bully of the system, likely swung close to this fifth giant and kicked it out. It was a gravitational slingshot that hurled the planet into the freezing dark, stopping just short of escaping the Sunday's grip entirely. There it has sat for 4.5 billion years, a frozen, exiled king ruling over a kingdom of ice and silence. If this is true, it solves a major missing piece of our puzzle. When we look at other star systems across the galaxy, the most common type of planet we find is a super-Earth worlds that are larger than Earth but smaller than Neptune. We see them everywhere. Yet our solar system does not have one. We jump straight from the rocky Earth to the gas giant Neptune. It is a strange gap in our inventory. Finding Planet 9 would confirm that we are not freaks of the universe. We just lost our most common family member in the attic. But the radiation readings were just the beginning of the doubt. What they found inside the crater of the mathematical models suggested something denser. The alternative theory, proposed by physicists from Harvard and the United Kingdom, is that the object is a primordial black hole. These are not the star-eaters you see in movies. Formed by the death of massive suns, these are ancient artifacts. They formed in the very first second after the Big Bang. When the universe was hot and dense, pockets of matter were crushed together so tightly that they collapsed into singularities before the first star ever ignited. These tiny black holes are scattered throughout the universe like invisible landmines. If one of these wanderers was captured by our Sunday's gravity, it would be incredibly small, while a planet of 10 Earth masses would be 4 times the size of our world. A black hole of the same mass would be roughly the size of a grapefruit. Imagine a sphere, 9 centimeters across, holding the weight of 10 entire Earths. It would be a bowling ball of pure, concentrated darkness. It would have no surface, no atmosphere, and no reflection. It would simply be a hole in the universe, orbiting silently in the void. This terrifying size explains why we have not found it. Searching for a planet in the Oort Cloud is already a nightmare of optics. The intensity of sunlight drops off with the square of the distance. By the time sunlight travels nearly 50 billion miles out to this object, it is barely a whisper. For us to see it, that light has to hit the surface, reflect off it, and travel 50 billion miles back to our telescopes. The light that returns is millions of times fainter than the faintest star the human eye can see. We are essentially trying to spot a black cat in a coal mine at midnight using a flashlight that is dimmed to the power of a single candle. But if the object is a black hole, there is no reflection at all. It absorbs the meagre sunlight that reaches it. It is the ultimate stealth technology. The only way to find it is to watch for the distortion of starlight behind it, a phenomenon called gravitational microlensing. We would have to catch it moving exactly in front of a distant star, bending the light for a brief second. It is a game of cosmic luck, and so far, the universe has not blinked. However, the darkness is not totally silent. Even a black hole this small leaves a footprint. As it travels through the halo of dark matter that surrounds our solar system, it should be creating a wake. Physics predicts that dark matter particles falling into the event horizon would annihilate each other, creating brief, sharp flashes of gamma radiation. We are not looking for a steady light. We are looking for sparks in the ocean. We are scanning the archival data of the Fermi Gamma Ray Space Telescope, hunting for a moving point of high-energy radiation that matches the predicted orbit. The implications of this search are haunting. If it is a planet, we can one day go there. We can send probes. We can land. It becomes a new frontier, a frozen reservoir of resources. But if it is a black hole, it is a celestial hazard of the highest order. It means we have a singularity within travelling distance. It would be the ultimate laboratory for physics, allowing us to study the extremes of gravity without travelling light years away. But it would also be a loaded gun. A black hole does not just sit there. It eats, it disrupts. While it is too far away to suck the Earth in gravity, is after all just gravity its influence on the Oort Cloud is the real danger. The Oort Cloud is a shell of trillions of icy comets. When a massive object moves through this shell, it acts like a spoon stirring a pot. It knocks these comets out of their stable orbits. Some are thrown out into space, lost forever, but others are thrown inward. They are sent diving toward the inner solar system, toward the Sunday, and toward us. This leads to a chilling realization about the history of life on Earth. Paleontologists identify extinction events that seem to happen on a cycle. Every 27 million years or so, life on Earth gets hammered. Comets rain down craters form, and species vanish. For decades, this periodicity was a mystery. But if we have a massive shepherd in the outer dark slowly rotating, tilting the comets of the Oort Cloud, it might be the clockmaker of our destruction. Every time it reaches a specific point in its orbit, it might send a barrage of rocks hurtling our way. We might be living in the quiet period of a cycle controlled by a ghost we cannot even see. We have actually seen hints of its presence closer to home than we comfortably admit. When the Cassini spacecraft was orbiting Saturn, arguably the most successful mission in NASA history, it measured the orbit of the ringed giant with exquisite precision. But there were discrepancies, tiny, almost imperceptible deviations in Saturn's path around the Sunday. The data didn't match the models perfectly. Something was tugging on Saturn. Something was pulling the gas giant slightly off course. When the mission ended and Cassini plunged into Saturn's atmosphere, it left us with a final set of numbers that screamed of an external force. We tried to fix the math. We adjusted the mass of the asteroid belt. We tweaked the positions of Jupiter. Nothing worked. The only thing that smoothed the data was the inclusion of a massive distant source of gravity. The ghost was pulling on Saturn just as it pulls on Sedna. And now the hunt is entering a desperate phase. The new Vera C. Rubin Observatory in Chile is about to come online. It is a wide-field survey telescope designed to photograph the entire available sky every few nights. It is our best hope. It will create a movie of the universe rather than just static pictures. If Planet 9 is out there moving against the background stars, this machine will catch it. It will spot the faint, shifting pixel that doesn't belong. But the radiation readings were just the beginning. What they found inside the crater would defy physics entirely. Wait, that is the feeling the scientists have. The anticipation of the reveal, because there is a third possibility, one that is rarely discussed in press releases, but whispers through the corridors of astrophysics departments. What if the anomalies aren't caused by a planet, and they aren't caused by a black hole? What if our understanding of gravity itself is wrong on these massive scales? What if the darkness isn't an object but a breakdown of Newton's laws? We call it modified Newtonian dynamics, or MOND. It suggests that at extremely low accelerations, gravity behaves differently. It suggests there is no ghost, no dark matter, no Planet 9. It suggests that the universe is not what we thought it was, but most astronomers reject this. The clustering of Sedna and the others is too precise, too physical. The alignment of the orbits is too architectural to be a glitch in the math. There is something there. The question is not if we will find it. The question is, what will we do when we realize it has been acting as a barrier? We tend to look at gravity as a force that keeps us in, but gravity works both ways. A massive object at the edge of the solar system doesn't just keep comets in check, it might be the reason we have struggled to leave. It acts like a gravitational fence, a silent shepherd that dictates the boundaries of our existence. If you look at the flight paths of our most distant ambassadors, the Voyager probes and the Pioneers, you see the subtle fingerprints of this struggle. As they pushed past the orbit of Pluto and entered the heliopause, the boundary where the Sunday's wind clashes with the interstellar medium, they reported anomalies. The Pioneer spacecraft, in particular, slowed down more than the laws of physics predicted. It was a tiny deceleration, a microscopic tug backward toward the Sunday, which we eventually blamed on the thermal heat radiating from the spacecraft itself. But with the discovery of the Sedna cluster, and the potential existence of a 10 Earth mass object in the deep dark, that anomaly takes on a sinister new context. We are trying to leave a room, but something is standing in the doorway, and its mass is warping the frame. This brings us to the most unsettling realization of all. The evidence for this invisible giant is not just 50 billion miles away. It is right here in our laboratories, sitting inside a sealed canister. The debris sent by this giant has already reached Earth. When the OSIRIS-REx mission returned from the asteroid Bennu, dropping a capsule into the Utah desert, We thought we were just analysing a random rock from the early solar system. We opened the lid and found dust that was blacker than coal, rich in carbon and water-bearing clay. But where did Bennu come from? It is a rubble pile, a collection of shattered rocks held together by weak gravity. It is a piece of shrapnel from a collision that happened long ago. The computer models that predict the existence of Planet 9 also predict its behaviour as a disruptor. As the giant moves through the icy belt, it scatters objects. It throws them outward into the void, but it also throws them inward into the grinder of the inner solar system. These icy bodies collide, shatter, and drift closer to the Sunday, drying out and becoming asteroids like Bennu. The water molecules trapped inside that sample, the very building blocks of life that we hold in our hands, may have originated in the frozen kingdom of the 9th planet. It is a cycle of destruction and creation. The giant throws rocks at us. Some of them are city killers that wipe out dinosaurs. Some of them are water carriers that fill our oceans. We are intimately connected to this invisible monster. It is the architect of our history, choosing when to bombard us and when to let us thrive. We are living in the eye of a storm that rotates once every 10,000 years. So, why haven't we gone there? Why, if this object is so massive and so critical to our understanding of the universe, have we not launched a dedicated mission to hunt it down? We have the technology to send probes to Pluto. We have the engines to reach the interstellar medium. Yet, our exploration of the outer solar system has ground to a complete halt. The answer is complex, and it is terrifying. Distance is the first enemy. To reach Planet 9 with current chemical rockets would take 70 years or more. That is a lifetime. A scientist would have to launch the mission as a graduate student and would likely be dead before the probe arrived. It requires a generational commitment that our species rarely displays. But there is a deeper hesitation. The outer solar system is not empty space. It is a minefield of radiation and magnetic anomalies. The heliosphere protects us from the worst of the galactic cosmic rays. But out there, near the domain of the giant, the protection thins. The radiation environment becomes hostile to electronics and biology alike. If the object is a primordial black hole, the danger is magnified. Approaching it would mean navigating a chaotic region of distorted gravity and high-energy particles. It would mean flying blind into a region where navigation sensors might fail. And if we did reach it, if we did turn the camera toward the anomaly and saw nothing but a distortion in the stars, the psychological impact would be shattering. It would confirm that we are living next to a rupture in space-time. There is a theory known as the dark forest solution to the Fermi paradox. It suggests that civilizations hide because there are predators in the galaxy. We usually look for these predators among the stars, imagining alien fleets. But perhaps the predator is gravity itself. Perhaps solar systems like ours are rare, not because life is rare, but because most systems are destabilized by these wandering giants or black holes before life can ever take hold. We survived because our giant was exiled to the edge, far enough away to spare us, but close enough to protect us from incoming interstellar debris. We are standing on the shore of a dark ocean, looking out at the ripples, knowing something massive is swimming just beneath the surface. The Vera Rubin Observatory will soon open its eye. It will take the pictures that will either confirm the planet or deepen the mystery. If it finds a planet, we will have a new world to map, a frozen super-Earth with a hydrogen atmosphere, and perhaps a subsurface ocean, kept warm by the crushing pressure of its own gravity. If it finds nothing, then the silence becomes louder. It means the source of the gravity is dark. It means the primordial black hole theory moves from fringe science to terrifying reality. Until then, we are left with the uneasy feeling of being watched. We look at the orbits of Sedna and its kin, huddled together on one side of the sky, trembling in the dark. We see the alignment. We see the math, and we realize that our map of the solar system is incomplete. We have drawn the house, but we forgot to draw the thing standing in the backyard. The reason we haven't gone back to check, the reason we haven't pushed past the orbit of Neptune with a manned mission or a flagship probe in decades, goes beyond just budget cuts and politics. It is a technical wall that we hit in the 1980s. We realised that the deeper we go, the harder the universe pushes back. The cold, the radiation, and the sheer mind-breaking distance make the outer planets a graveyard for ambitions. We retreated to low Earth orbit and Mars because the abyss was too deep, but that retreat might have been a mistake, because while we ignore the outer dark, it is not ignoring us. The anomaly is out there circling, ticking down the millennia until its next close approach. And if we want to understand the true nature of the cage we live in, we have to understand why we stopped trying to break out. The failure of our deep space ambitions is not just a story of lost funding. It is a story of a boundary we are afraid to cross. If you want to understand the technological and physical nightmare that forced NASA to abandon the giants of the deep, and why our reach suddenly stopped at Saturn, you need to listen to this next report. It details the exact point where our courage failed us. Click here to understand why we stopped going to the outer solar system. Until next time.